Thank you all for having me today. I'm very excited about talking about patience. Maybe, let me take a second here and get my notes prepared. Let me be patient. Maybe you've heard this in your life, especially when you were young. Be patient. Grin and bear it. Swallow your feelings, young man, right now. This is often all we hear about patience. I like the point that we had only one book at the library on patience. But how does one become skillful at patience? And what's the point? So now, being the Buddhist person here, in Buddhism, patience is one of the very highest virtues. It's a deep spiritual practice. It's a true path to peace, a true path. It's the perfect practice of mindfulness in daily life. As a practice, it points the way to the end of suffering for you and for others around you. And as a practice, you can become more skillful with patience as you practice it. Of course, everybody's going to have a slip now and then. So what is patience? Patience appears, this is our definition, patience appears when we create a pause between our experience of a feeling and a response to that feeling. Or as Barbara Johnson put it so succinctly, patience is the ability to idle your motor when you feel like stripping its gears. One way to understand patience is to study impatience. So I began to examine impatience in my own life, and I began by looking at how other people can be impatient. And you really see this everywhere once you begin to look. But you especially see it when you're driving, right? People are in a hurry. They go 90 miles an hour on the interstate. They tailgate you, huh? They cut you off, act like they don't see your signal, shoot into the HOV lane with only the driver. And maybe while driving, an impatient driver has done something that really triggers your anger. And after that, you reacted poorly by driving poorly, by speeding up, honking your horn, flashing your lights, cursing, making hand signs. Maybe there's a reason for that other person's behavior. Maybe his wife is pregnant and the water broke. Maybe it's just an error in judgment on his part when he cut you off, almost murdered you and your children. Just an error in judgment. But aren't we all subject to making errors in judgment? So there's usually a reason for impatience. And we'll get more to this later. But if you think about it, there are impatient people at work, where you play, where you shop, and in your family. So whenever I notice impatience in others, I feel a twinge of impatience. I know impatience. So, well, hurry up. Let's go. Move along. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's fix it right now. I am so tired of waiting. So our impatience, this is an important part. Our impatience can arouse anger and really cause damage in the world, in your relationships, in your work, in your family, on the highway. So although impatience and anger aren't the same things, they're deeply connected. You might say they live in the same house. When impatience reaches a tipping point, anger rushes in to the rescue. This is the point where something other than anger is needed, and that something is patience. When anger's appeal is so strong, so righteous, so appealing, so immediate, But an outburst of anger can blind us to what's really, really happening. However, taking a pause at the right moment can undermine that very deceiving appeal of anger. You all know what I'm talking about, that deceiving appeal of anger. The damage caused to ourselves and others by such outbursts of anger can be really devastating. Likewise, an ongoing suppression of our angry thoughts and feelings can have serious psychological consequences. We need to feel our anger, but we need to avoid the outburst. That's very hard to do. But it's this way that patience is the antidote to anger. Shantideva, here's a quote. Shantideva was a 8th century Indian philosopher, Buddhist monk, poet, and scholar. He wrote a very famous book titled The Way of the Bodhisattva, a book that the Dalai Lama has studied all his life. In it, Shantideva wrote, "All virtuous deeds and merit, such as giving and making offerings, that we have accumulated over thousands of eons, can be destroyed by just one moment of anger." One moment of anger. I lost an old childhood friend, my best friend as a child, because of a moment of anger. He said something to me that really upset me, and I was hurt, and I got caught up in my own story in my head, which led to a real outburst of anger. And we haven't spoken since. And I've lost contact with him. It's really sad. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Shantideva also wrote, "There is no evil greater than anger, no virtue greater than patience. Therefore, I should strive in various ways to become familiar with the practice of patience." And remember, patience is the ability, when these strong emotions arise, to take a pause. Take a pause. So one day, a while back, my wife Susan and I were cleaning up and organizing the garage, which is always somewhat stressful. I want to throw everything out, and she wants to keep some of it and yard sale the rest. God forbid, a yard sale? No. Impatient me thinks, just get rid of it and move on. We want to park a car in our garage. The car is worth this much money. This junk is worth this much money. I just don't see it. Anyway, as the conversation went on, I was getting more and more impatient with the situation. And somehow I was feeling threatened and trapped. Then she said something to me, and I don't remember what it was, but my button got pushed hard. At that moment, I felt an emptiness in my gut. My throat started getting all tight, and I felt anger rising in me. And then I watched my thoughts, and my thoughts were like, "She said what to me? That hurts." When people say those things to me, I respond with, and then I realized I'd never seen this process before in my life. This process is often so automatic. I felt I was impatient. I felt anger. And then some automatic justification came quickly to mind. My personal story of suffering, my victimhood. Oh, it all happened so quickly. It was a revelation. That's what it was. Normally, this response is so automatic in us, so quick. Now maybe it was the fact that I did meditation for a while, for many years, that I tended to kind of slow down my thinking, and I kind of begin to see it happen. But anyway, at that moment, when I just was about to pounce, I had this thought: this is my wife. I've been married to her for 35 years at the time, and I know she loves me and meant no harm. Maybe my reaction was totally misread the situation, right? And this was the pause with a capital P. And I just didn't react to her remark, what she said. I listened instead. I listened. All that energy that was aroused in me passed quickly away. If I'd gotten angry with her, it very well could have escalated into something pretty awful. She'd get angry with me, and you know what? She'd be justified. And now when someone says something to me that gets me upset or presses my buttons, I do my best to take a pause and then to really listen and let my feelings arise and pass away without adding a story, my personal story of suffering, which is very important, I think. But this insight, this seeing the process, as simple as it sounds, was a big insight for me. Again, what is patience? Patience appears when we create a pause between our experience of a feeling and our response to that feeling. I carried that insight from the garage into my work. Scott, my boss at work, was often very short-tempered, and he would take it out on me, his worker, and I would get impatient and say the wrong thing. I mean, for example, we were doing a training session, and I forgot to do something, and he got really teed off. And he looked at me and said, "How could you possibly forget?" And I casually looked at him and said, "Scott, I don't bat 1,000. And then he really, he went to the roof. So I said the wrong thing, obviously. But after the experience in the garage, when he was impatient with me or with his job, I practiced listening. If it was about me, I would listen and accept it and try not to react. But also, I would also practice metta on myself. May you be safe, may you be kind, happy, may you be well, may you be at peace. May he be at peace, right? I did that. I would just breathe and do that. It helped soften the blow. But I was really truly practicing patience now. And he was a very private person. And because I listened without reacting, a change happened. He began to open up to me. He began to share his personal challenges in work and in his life. So our relationship really blossomed, and we became really good friends. And we really began to work well together. And for me, this was a really important thing because it changed my whole idea about what work was about. I mean, I had to learn this when I was like 63, right? But it was about other people, not about me. So in Buddhism, there's no sin per se. It's really about 3 poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. So anger is one of the 3 poisons that causes suffering in the world. We can look around and see this: greed, anger, and ignorance. Ignorance is sometimes referred to as delusion. Some of our leaders are deluded. So it's natural to get angry, but what's harmful is that we cannot let go of our anger. Buddha described holding on to your anger as holding on to a hot coal in your hand, only burning yourself, not the other person for whom you're holding that piece of coal for. So Buddha offered the following teaching on anger to the monk Osaka. Having slain anger, one sleeps soundly. Having slain anger, one does not sorrow. The killing of anger, Osaka, with its poisoned root and honeyed tip. This is the killing that the noble ones praise. For having slain that, one does not sorrow. Ultimately, the patience is the practice of mindfulness in the world. In Buddhist thought, there are 6 paramitas of perfections on the path to enlightenment. Patience is one of them. Patience is the pause, and that pause is mindfulness. So, back to what patience is. There are 3 aspects of patience: gentle forbearance, endurance of hardship, and the acceptance of the truth. The first aspect of impatience is gentle forbearance. This is when you're waiting in a long line at the grocery store or helping your child with homework when it's the least interesting thing in the world to you and to your child, or sitting in traffic on I-85. It's not true patience. We just want to eradicate the challenge, get it over with. But by learning to relax, step back, focus on our breathing, think about something pleasant. If you're in the car, turn the radio on to nice music. Your feelings of impatience will cease. The second aspect of impatience is the endurance of hardship. Everyone experiences hardships in this life. Sometimes we experience hardships when we're trying to reach a goal, like attending college when you're a single mom, or when you don't have enough food or enough money for food or to live on. And there are a great many hardships in life. A little humor goes a long way in these situations, and faith that things are always changing. Here's a little short story by Michelle McDonald that expresses this. She's a meditation teacher from Hawaii. My 5-year-old niece complained to me recently, "I hate school. I hate school." I replied, "Oh, that's too bad. Why?" "Because it's so boring." Well, she said, so she loves the movie Finding Nemo, so I reminded her how Dory and Nemo's father, Marlin, endured so many obstacles when they tried to locate and liberate Nemo. I said, "What did Dory say to Marlin when they were lost and ready to give up?" She remembered. "When life gets you down, keep swimming." She laughed. I challenged her to tell me one interesting thing that is happening every time she thinks she's bored. Through investigation of boredom, instead of concluding that we're wasting our time and disconnecting from what is in the present moment, we can pause, explore, and begin again. The third aspect of patience is acceptance of the truth. More often than not, this is the main reason for impatience, our inability to accept the truth as it is in the present moment. Now, life is always changing, and the truth of the moment changes as well. But to accept this moment as it is and face it, at times can demand real strength and courage. So, how do you practice patience? A place to start is to examine the conditions in your life when you're likely to be impatient. Knowing the conditions that can make you impatient and can prevent you from reaching that tipping point. Here's a short list in alphabetical order. The first one is accidents. Yes. Addictive behavior, yours and others. Aggressive behavior. Anxiety and fear of being victim of a crime. Christmas activities. Competition at work or in sports. Court appearances. Deadlines. Driving under difficult conditions. Extremes in weather. Fatigue. Feeling judged. Feeling lack of support. Feelings of insecurity. Financial stress. Frustration. Headaches, hunger, illness, injury, insomnia, interruptions, jealousy, lack of recognition, loss of employment, loss of a loved one, friend or pet, menopause. No, I knew I'd get some out of that one. Noise, not being heard, not having enough time, opinionated or judgmental people. Overwork. Physical appearances, over or underweight. Pregnancy. Relationship issues. Responsibilities, not enough help. Retirement, I would have thought. Separation or divorce. Struggles with technology. Traffic, amen. Give me an amen on that one. Yeah. Amen. Traffic. I mean, is there one I missed? Going to the bathroom? Needed to do that? So what's this pause thing I've been talking about? Well, there's actual science behind it. Neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor, author of My Stroke of Insight, describes our ability to regulate that neurological process that she calls the 90-second rule. When a person has a reaction to something in their environment, there's a 90-second chemical process that happens, and any remaining emotional response is just the person choosing to stay in that emotional loop. In plain English, this means this. When your impatience is at a tipping point, or you just get upset, if you can just feel the emotion and sense in your body and breathe and not dwell on your story and then continue to feed the flames, it'll pass in 90 seconds. Now, Deborah, our minister, didn't know about the research, but she was very clear. She knew about this 90-second rule. We had discussion about this one. And the great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh points to this 90-second rule in his teaching on anger. When anger is manifesting in me, I'm determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in the other person. Now, the thing about this is you have to let your partner know that you're going to walk away right now and practice mindful breathing. So, how do we develop the ability to pause at these moments? Well, make this your intention and practice this when impatience arises in you. Get the Post-it notes out and put one on the mirror or maybe in the car. Meditation is also a great support for this. Through daily silent practice, meditation practice, as little as 5-10 minutes a day, you can begin to slow down your thinking and examine it and see if what you're thinking is true and in line with your intention. You will learn how not to believe everything you think. And remember, this is a practice, and you're bound to fail at times. Don't give up. Just take Dory's advice and keep swimming. So impatience can lead to impulsiveness and anger, and that can do so much damage in the world. And that's the reason patience is a virtue. And it's something we can develop in ourselves. The idea is when you get upset or just feeling tired or hungry, you don't fall into the automatic, habitual reaction of acting on your anger. Taking the pause is the antidote to anger and the path to peace. Thank you.